Good morning and welcome to This Week. Down and dirty.
When you run for president, everything's called into question.
He sure as heck ought to say he's sorry.
Felony, dishonesty. Charges fly in the presidential campaign's nastiest week yet.
When a president doesn't tell the truth, how can we trust him to lead?
Either Mitt Romney was misrepresenting his position, which is a felony, or he was lying to the American people.
Are these debates fair game or distractions from the big issues? Which side is winning? And how much will voters care come November? Questions for our headliners. The former White House Chief of Staff and Obama campaign chairman, Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel, and New Hampshire Senator Kelly Ayotte, a top Romney surrogate and potential running mate. Plus, outrage over those Olympic uniforms made in China.
You'd think they'd know better.
And the cover-up of sexual abuse at Penn State.
Sandusky was allowed to continue with impunity.
Those topics and all the week's politics on our Powerhouse Roundtable with George Will, Donna Brazil, Matthew Dowd, and that political odd couple, James Carville and Mary Matlin.
From ABC News, This Week with George Stephanopoulos. It's your voice, your vote. Reporting from ABC News Election Headquarters, George Stephanopoulos.
Hello again. Everything is happening at hyperspeed in this campaign. Only July, and the Obama campaign has already spent $100 million on campaign ads, most of them going after Mitt Romney. The Romney campaign and its allies have spent about the same, and their latest ad says that the president is lying about Romney's record at Bain Capital. Take a look.
When a president doesn't tell the truth, how can we trust him to lead? The Obama outsourcing attacks. Misleading, unfair, and untrue. America expects more from a president. Obama's dishonest campaign. Another reason America has lost confidence in Barack Obama.
And with that, let's get a response from Obama's campaign chair, the former White House Chief of Staff, current Chicago Mayor, Rahm Emanuel. Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Good morning, George.
You know, Governor Romney himself went even farther than that ad in an interview with ABC's John Carl on Friday. He demanded the President Obama apologize for what he called Chicago-style politics that demean the presidency. Any chance he'll get one?
Well, first of all, you know, it's interesting. No, I don't think so, because Mitt Romney said Bain Capital is his calling card for why he should be president. He doesn't talk about Massachusetts as governor. He doesn't talk about any other piece. He says, I created jobs at Bain Capital. And everything in that ad is documented by newspaper clips. And it talks exactly in the President Obama's campaign about what Mitt Romney's record is in the sense of outsourcing jobs and exactly what the record was at Bain Capital.
But as you know,
and
what he says is that outsourcing occurred after 1999 when he left Bain Capital. I know that George, you all point to that SEC filing that says he was the owner. But it's not just
George. George, you didn't say point to it. He signed it. He said chairman. He said CEO, sole shareholder, president. You can't, as president of the United States, you can't have a sign on your desk that said gone fishing. You can't put that on that desk. It's basically the buck stops there. You can't say to the SEC, I was the CEO, chairman, and president, but I'm not responsible. I'm not accountable. That's what he likes you to think. But then he says, the reason I should be president is Bain Capital. Well, let's look at that. And then when you look at it, it's not the record presented. And those are the policies that led to jobs going overseas rather than manufacturing jobs. And he has already said, and he told people, manufacturing is not part of our future. 500,000 jobs have been created in the manufacturing sector in the last 3 years. It is part of our future, and if you're going to build and make sure the 21st century is again the American century, you can't take an entire sector of the economy and wipe it clean like you wanted to do with the auto industry.
Do you really believe, as Stephanie Cutter suggested just the other day, that Mitt Romney might have committed a felony when he signed those SEC reports?
Well, first of all, Stephanie cited the law, and it's very clear. Either the filing with the SEC is accurate and his personal financial disclosure is not honest, or that's honest and the SEC isn't. But both can't be accurate. Both cannot be accurate, depicting a time where he said he was doing one thing or another.
He says it was just a formality, and he was untangling during the time he was untangling his involvement with Bain.
He has to, George, he has made Bain Capital his calling card for the presidency. And when you look at it, it doesn't measure up to what he claims. And number two, on both of those filings, one is accurate and one isn't. And they both have consequences when one is not accurate. And that is what she stated. And the second thing is, give it up about Stephanie. Don't worry about that. What are you going to do when the Chinese leader says something to you, or Putin says to you? Going to whine as your way? You cannot do that. And as Mitt Romney says once to his own Republican colleagues, stop whining. I give him his own advice. Stop whining. Defend. If you want to claim Bain Capital as your calling card to the White House, then defend what happened to Bain Capital and what happened to those jobs that went overseas, those jobs that were actually cut and eliminated, the companies that went into bankruptcy. And the very companies at Bain that went into bankruptcy, while Bain was still getting paid, same philosophy that led to him advocating that the auto industry go bankrupt. The President of the United States said, no, we're going to defend Chrysler, we're going to defend GM, and today America's auto industry is thriving, not in bankruptcy, as Mitt Romney had recommended.
The campaign has also been pushing...
and that is the facts.
The campaign has also been pushing very hard for Mitt Romney to release more of his tax returns. He says the public has everything they need to know to understand his finances, and we do know that Mitt Romney made a lot of money. We know he paid a relatively low tax rate. What more will the returns tell us that we don't know?
George, there's 2 points here that I think are really important. First of all, Mitt Romney's own father said you shouldn't release 1 year. And already he has released, in my view, he's released 1 year. Let's just take a step.
He says he's going to release a second.
One on transparency and what that says. He has released only 1 year. To the McCain campaign, he released 23 years. And he's telling the American people, I'm not going to give you what I've given John McCain's people in 2008. And when he gave them 23 years, John McCain's people looked at it and said, let's go with Sarah Palin. So whatever's in there is far worse than just the first year. You know, the campaign, the Romney campaign isn't stupid. They have decided it is better to get attacked on lack of transparency, lack of accountability to the American people, versus telling you what's in those taxes.
So what do you think is in there?
They're not enjoying this, and he can clear this up, just make it public. Now, the second thing, George, he did, not just relatively, he paid 14%, about half of what a middle-class family pays. Second is, you've learned in just 1 year about the Caymans, about the Bahamas, about Luxembourg, and about Switzerland, all where his tax and different accounts are. His tax filing looks more like the Olympic Village than it does like a middle-class family. And then third, next 4 years, the President of the United States is going to have tax reform. And you're going to have to debate it with Congress and shape it. And unless you have his taxes, and I've seen this in the Oval Office, George, there's going to be times in which a President of the United States has to make trade-offs and choices. Will it be a middle-class family's desire to save to send their kid to college, or protecting the loophole in the Cayman Islands? Will it be a middle-class family's desire to get a tax credit for a child and help raise them in a middle-class family? Or will we protect the Bahamas, Luxembourg, and Switzerland?
So, okay, you've made...
And those are the trade-offs. George, those are the trade-offs that are going to come to tax reform.
I get that.
And in 1 year, you've already learned, this is a big decision. He has fully used what is legal in the tax code, and that's the problem with the tax code. And he has
But he's actually said that. He said he's going to call for tax reform. I want to move on to what he also says. He says, you all are pushing this issue to distract from the president's failures on the economy, desperate attacks from a president, he says, who can't run on his record. And our polls do show that almost two-thirds of the American public think the country is going in the wrong direction and disapprove of President Obama's job on the economy.
And George, let's go to two very points. Your very same polls know that President Obama would fight for the middle class and Mitt Romney would not. And second, one of the most critical decisions made in the last 3 years about the economy, the industrial manufacturing base of the country. President Obama went one way to help keep American jobs and keep them here, the auto industry, saving 1.2 million manufacturing jobs. Mitt Romney let him go bankrupt. Why? That's how he's dealt with companies. He actually gave you his opinion of what he would do to a critical industry. Our auto industry today is thriving, creating jobs here, and not only in the auto industry, in the supplier industry. And the reason was because the President of the United States would not throw the towel in on the industry.
You've also made the point that Mitt Romney is going to be an outsourcer of jobs.
And that's a critical economic decision.
I get it. You've made that point. You've also said he's going to be an outsourcer of jobs. But what Romney says in return is the president hasn't done enough to stop outsourcing of jobs from going overseas. And even Democrats have criticized part of the stimulus programs that ended up funding foreign companies. Take a look.
Since this program began, 79% of the $2.1 billion in stimulus grants awarded through it went to overseas companies.
Can you imagine the Chinese Communist Party passing a stimulus package and importing goods from the United States?
Outsourcing has also increased over the last 3 years. Doesn't it undercut the president's argument that Mitt Romney would be the outsourcer in chief?
No, I mean, here's the thing. The fact is the stimulus, I actually opened up a facility here in Chicago. A healthcare facility was built with stimulus dollars. And it now is a healthcare facility on the west side of the city in North Lawndale. And it's a healthcare facility in a poor area, and it created jobs.
But some of the funds did go overseas, as those Democrats pointed out.
George, and here we have when we started, America's battery industry, the new batteries, was only 2% of world production. Today we're close to 40%, directly out of the stimulus bill. And those jobs are here in the United States. Second is, here's the core issue. We just came out of a decade that was a lost decade for the middle class. And in the next 4 years, we're going to have to decide a set of policies and either make sure the middle class have a chance to raise their kids with middle class economics, middle class values, save for their college education, save for their retirement, pay for health care, and own a home. And the question is what president in that Oval Office will hear the voices, the concerns, and the interests of the middle class, or hear the other interests, the ones that actually have checking accounts in the Bahamas, can use what goes on in the Cayman Islands, can use the loopholes that allow you to move money to Switzerland and only pay 14% while you're making millions of dollars. And that is the question that will sit in the Oval Office, and which president behind that desk will hear the voices and the interests of the middle class or discard them and actually think about the Cayman Islands and Bahamas.